Hey people, welcome back to Bricks with Tips. My name is Tayo Oguntonade. I'm the co-founder of Bricks with Tips, which I run with my wife Antoinette. Now, if you're new here, this platform is to help you guys get better with property or with your money in general or just with your business. Like we are developing into something that just helps people build brick by brick, as you'd say. The ultimate goal to help families out there build wealth. Now, in this particular video, I'm going to answer a question that I get quite a lot of the time in the emails, in the DMs, and a lot of other places, right? A lot of people have done really, really well to save a figure of roughly around £25,000. And the next question is, what should I do with £25,000 in property? Now, this particular video isn't advice, right? But it's a chance to get an insight from someone who's been in property for about 10 years and kind of get from my point of view what I think people should be doing. And a lot of these answers are based on my experiences, the things that I've done well, and also some of the things that I've done badly myself as well to save you doing that as well. So in this video, I'm going to go through 5 different things that you could do if you have £25,000 to get started in property. No need for a long introduction. Let's get into it. So it's only right to start with number 1, which is the first one most people think about, right? Which is buy to let. If you don't know what buy to let is, it's simply buying a property and renting it out to a family or a long-term tenant over a long period of time. They pay all of the bills. You might just pay for home insurance and your mortgage, and you'll make a profit on the difference between your mortgage, your other small costs, and the rent that they pay as well. But what does this actually look like? Let's get into it. So let's say that you bought a property up north, because when you've got 25K, if you're looking at buying a property, it's likely to be up north. So let's say you bought a property up north for £80,000. You need to put down a 25% deposit, right? So you'd put down £20,000. You'll have to pay stamp duty on that property of £4,000. Your legal fees might be about £1,500. And let's just say that your mortgage fees plus your survey fees is another £1,500. These are just rough figures to give you an idea, but that puts you roughly around £27,000. So what does that look for you on an ongoing basis, right? On a property like that, your mortgage might be anywhere as low as like £300, £350. Let's call it £300, right? And best case scenario, again, very roughly, your rental income might be £600 to £700 on a property like that. Let's just call it £700, so we've got a round figure, meaning that you're getting a profit of £400 per month. Now that's £4,800 a year, just under 5K a year, spending £25,000. So if we're imagining that there's no problems with the property and we're not factoring tax as well, it just means that in about 5 years or so, you'll get most of your initial cash that you put into the property back, right? Hopefully that makes sense. So what are the pros of this, right? I guess the pros are that you own an asset, which is really, really good. You've got one of the most passive investment strategies in property at the moment in standard buy-to-let, and you manage to secure something, right, with a relatively low amount of money, right? Now, what are the cons of it? Now, the truth is I don't really believe in cons. So for each con that I mention in this video, I'm going to mention something that might be able to counteract it or soften the con, right? So the cons are you're spending £27,500 to be making £400 profit per month. It could be better. What you could explore is doing exactly that, but looking to rent it out to somebody else, right? Not your typical tenant. Exploring what type of tenant would be paying more, right? And that could be something as simple as Airbnb, or it could be something like finding out a local council that has a need for a property and looking into something through there. Another big con is Section 21, where rules are becoming a lot more stringent for landlords who have buy-to-let properties, whereby they effectively lose control of their property. Every tenant now is going to be in a lifetime tenancy, and if they don't pay, it can be extremely hard to get them out of the property. But again, a way to counteract that is to do really, really good vetting on tenants, or once again, to look at other type of people that can be in the property other than your standard tenants as an option. Now, I'll do a little conclusion at the end. I've done buy-to-let before. I used to do buy-to-let. My whole portfolio of properties that I own, nothing's on buy-to-let at the moment. And that's for a reason. Buy-to-let is, for me, cash flow-wise, it's not aggressive enough. And you're not really adding that much value as well. So I moved away from buy-to-let, and I can speak about some of the things that I moved on to. But one of the things I did move on to that was mentioned in it is that all of my buy-to-let properties, I convert them all to Airbnbs, which cash flow a lot better. Right, strategy number 2, really, really interesting, right? Now, because we've done buy-to-let, it's only right to move on to its cousin, which is BRRR, which is buy, refurbish, refinance, rent. Now, I'm not going to go through that strategy in detail in this video, but if you want to watch it, I have a very old, really good video that I've done on it. It should be on the screen right now. You can click on it later, or watch it now and come back to this. In a nutshell, this is how it works. You buy a property below market value. You add value through renovation, so you force the appreciation of the property, so much so that when you refinance it, you can pull some or all of your money back out of the property. Now you own a property and you can rent it out. So let's go through it. Once again, if you only have around about 25K, you probably have to look up north. And up north, you can get properties for about 60K, a property that's dated, right? You'll put down a 25% deposit, which is £15,000. Your stamp duty is going to be £3,000, bringing you to £18,000. Your legal, survey, and all these bits and pieces, probably about another £3,000. So that brings you to £21,000. So if we're stopping at hard 25K, then you've got 4K for refurb, right? Can you do something with 4K for refurb? Maybe if you go up there, maybe if you've got a contact. But I don't know, even with the small properties up north, you're probably going to need, even if you get creative, something closer to like 7 or 8, right? So really and truly with this, we're looking around the 28K mark, 29K mark, right? And it's only right that it's a bit more than the buy-to-let option we looked at earlier, even though the property price is reduced. Anyways, as you know, these are just rough figures to help you get the gist. If you want the full figures, you can go check out the video that I mentioned, right? Anyways, what are the pros of this, right? The pros of this is that when you refinance doing a BRRR, you get some or all of your money back, basically. So in this particular example, you're going to get, even if it's 50% of the 28K that you put in, you'll get 14,000 back out that you get to use on something else, right? Huge pro of that is that you get to reuse your capital. Super, super important. And that's why this particular strategy is so helpful for people that want to build a portfolio, because your capital gets to get reused and reused again, basically. And you keep going on to the next one, but you don't sell a unit, right? You've kept your existing property and then you're moving on from there. The cons, you need to be an expert, right? You need to understand where to spend your money to add value. You need to understand how to get a good build team. You need to be prudent enough to watch out for dodgy builders. It's more complex to execute than a standard buy to let. So my conclusion, right? Yeah, I've done BRRRs before. How do I feel about it? I think that 25K might be a bit of a stretch. 25, 27K, it might be a bit of a stretch. For me, it's something I consider if I've got some kind of competitive edge. And what I mean by that is that I found a property off market that's below market value and it makes sense. Or I found a property that I've identified why it's being undervalued. And I know that it doesn't cost much to add that value. Because sometimes properties can be undervalued simply because they're not marketed well. So maybe you're just going to go in there, throw in 3K, 4K for a quick refurb, but actually you've bought it for a lot less because it simply wasn't marketed well in the first instance, making it perfect for something like a BRRR. For me, I just say that this isn't something that you jump into with 2 feet, especially if you're new. Have a think about it, because quite often, especially in property, it can be costly when you make mistakes, especially on complex things that you're trying to go into blindly. Right, guys, that brings me on to strategy 3. Now, before I go on to strategy 3, if you're enjoying this video so far, make sure you like it, comment, and please do share it with someone, right? Sharing helps. So share it with someone on WhatsApp, share it with someone on Instagram. A family member, a lot of family members have been asking their other family members, and they message me saying, how can I invest 25K? Send them this video because this will be super helpful. Right, number 3, invest in yourself, right? This is one that is often glossed over. And I'll say from the rip, I've invested in myself. Antoinette's invested in herself several times, right? There's a saying, right? You either pay with time or you pay with money. And in property, where there's a lot of capital involved, it can be quite costly to make mistakes. So investing in yourself is super, super important. And that can cost anything from £0 to £5,000, right? You can start off small. I often mention that if you want to get into property, and I go on your Instagram page, and I'm not seeing an algorithm of property, you're not serious about getting into property, right? But it doesn't stop there, because that's just what's going to pique your interest, right? Shorts, YouTube videos like this, they're there to inspire. When it comes to actual implementation, a lot of the time you're going to need to invest in yourself. Whether that's mentorship, whether that's a clear walkthrough of what you want to do. But the earlier stages with what you can do for free, consuming videos like this, consuming shorts, it's going to inspire you and help you to understand what you want to get into. That way, when you find what you want to get into, you can go to a mentor and pay them to help you get into that, basically. Super, super important. And it's no surprise, right? Before we move on from this topic, everybody that you see that's successful in property, so you might have watched a video before this one, or you might have watched a video after this one. A lot of them will say that they pay for mentorship, right? Or they paid for mentorship. I've paid in property. I'm even gonna, like, for some of you may know that I'm a speaker. Like, I've spoken on some really big stages. I'm looking to get a speaking mentorship just to polish up, because people need to understand that investing is all about delayed gratification, right? Because when I polish up my speaking, I'll be able to maybe hit more international stages, which is going to pay for itself, right? At that point in time, the cost of paying for mentorship is nothing because of the potential return on it. And we always say the ROI on investing yourself is infinite. And that's the difference between investing yourself and the other things that we've mentioned. So guys, yeah, I'll leave you with that. My conclusion is I think it's something great to do, especially if you're new into property. But before you invest in yourself, I'd always say be sure about what you want to get into as well. So don't invest in yourself for, I don't know, a strategy that after you've got your mentorship, you realize you don't want that strategy. So definitely spend your time ensuring that you're sure about what you want to get into. Right, guys, strategy 4, rent to rent. This is a strategy that I do, one of my main strategies in 2025. And I'm going to do another video on my main strategies in 2025. But rent to rent is a very, very powerful strategy at ensuring that you cash flow really, really well after not putting down that much cash. So what does it look like? In a crux, you approach a landlord, rent their property off them because they want market buy-to-let rates. You add value to their property, and then you list it on platforms like Airbnb and Booking.com and make a profit through short stays. So let's see what that could look like in practice. So you approach a landlord, rent a property off them for 1,500, right? They may ask you for a deposit, another 1,500. And then let's presume it's a 2-bedroom property. To furnish that property, it could be 2,000 to 2,500, right? So that's 3K plus your 2,000 to 2,500. Let's just call it 5.5K. That's what you will need to get started in rent to service accommodation. So if you've got 25K, you can get one property with between 5 and 6K, let's call it. Now, of those 3 startup elements, right, let's look at your furniture. Your furniture stays in your business as a whole, right? So you can move it to other properties after your contract's done. Your deposit, you're going to get back. And sometimes you can negotiate no deposit, which frees up your cash flow even more. And then finally, your rent. It's a really interesting one because as you guys probably already know, we have a mentorship where we teach people how to get involved in rent to service accommodation, or if they own properties like I do that are on Airbnb, how to convert those to Airbnb properties, right? And we can show you how to ensure that you're booked up from month 1, right? All of our mentees get bookings from month 1, which means that even with that 1,500 rent that you'll be paying, you're going to get all of that back and then some in month 1. But if we move away from that for a second and just look at the numbers itself, £5,000 to £6,000 and how rent to service accommodation works, you typically take on properties that are going to be making you a minimum of £700 a month to about £2,000 a month. Peak season is in the summer where you could be making £2,000 per month. So with that being said, not only are you going to be profiting on your monthly expenses from month 1 straight away, you're going to be getting all of the capital that you invested back comfortably within a year as well. And that's why rent to service accommodation is such a popular strategy, not only in the UK, but in Dubai, in Ghana, in the States, everywhere. There's no, it's not just a coincidence, right? Now, what are the pros of it? Obviously, we're speaking about 5 to 6K, so low capital entry, right? As you can imagine, based on what I said, it's also really, really easy to scale, and it focuses on cash flow. And this is what a lot of people want, right? They want money to pay their bills today. They want money to allow them to travel today. They want money that allows them to quit their job today. Because if you're making £1,000 per month, it's very, very easy to understand how many of these do you need to replace your income. The cons of it, right? One of the cons is that compared to something like buy-to-let, there's a lot more turnover with guests that are staying in the property. But like I mentioned, I'll combat all cons of all of the strategies. And with that con mentioned, I'd say that you could put systems and staff in to allow you to manage that efficiently. I always mention to people that as you see me recording this video, I'm based in Dubai and all of my properties are in the UK. I have systems and staff set up so that I actually don't need to worry on a day-to-day about that business. One of the cons which I actually see as a pro is that it does require an element of expertise. I feel that a lot of people go into it and they're not experts, so they fail dramatically, right? You can't cut corners, right? You need to add the right value to the property, right? You need to position it correctly. You need to make sure that you're marketing aggressively. And all of these things can be put in place, but you don't know what you don't know. And finally, the last pro, compared to all of the options you've heard so far, is that there's no element of ownership, right? You really need to understand that. That's what I've kind of come up with, this phrase that what we've spoken about previously is property investment. This is a property business. It cash flows really, really well, but it doesn't offer ownership. And I think that's what some people just need to consider with this particular option. So my conclusion of it is that it's no wonder it's super, 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 super popular at the moment. If you want to learn more about it, I've got a free webinar that kind of teaches you the ins and outs about it. You can click it in the comments in this video. But I'd say it's a great strategy if you've got under £25,000, and it allows you to cash flow really, really well, and you can align it to your goals as well. Right, guys, the final one we've got, number 5, is deal sourcing. And deal sourcing can be done with, it's very, very labor intensive. So really and truly, when you've looked at compliance, when you've looked at setting up effectively, you can really start a deal sourcing company with less than £5,000, right? So how deal sourcing works is it's quite similar to things like rent to service accommodation. You just don't do it. So let me break it down to you. You would phone landlords, speak to them, let them know about a rent to service accommodation offering. A landlord would agree. And instead of taking on that rent to service accommodation property yourself and cash flowing £700 to £2,000 per month, you would sell that deal to an investor. And an investor will pay you £3,000 as the industry standard. So it's kind of like sales. You're running a business and it's kind of like sales. So you would sell that to an investor and you'd make £3,000. Now, I've often spoke about what I do. I don't do deal sourcing, but I've sold deals. What I mean by that is that if I get a property that comes across my desk at a time that I particularly don't want to take on another unit, I quickly package it because I've got a skill set. I quickly package it and sell it for £3,000 very, very easily, right? Typically, I'll take the property on, but there are times that I won't take a property on and sell it. So what are the pros of deal sourcing, right? The pros of deal sourcing is that there's a lot of investors out there and they are hungry. So it's very, very comfortable to sell deals, I'd say. The pros of it as well is that it's got very, very low startup fees. I mean, you can start with less than £5,000, maybe £3,000, maybe £2,000. What are the cons of it? And there aren't really cons as well. So the cons of it is that you'd have to be hitting the phones very, very aggressively to get enough deals to sustain you, right? It's not a huge con, right? I think that any good business takes an element of graft, so you can argue that it's part and parcel. The other thing is that there's no monthly recurring income. You have to keep on selling. But you could build a team, you could put systems in place so that can keep on working for you. My conclusion on deal sourcing is that I think it's a good strategy. I think that you could put it alongside your rent to service accommodation business. So even with our mentorship that I mentioned, we have a deal sourcing supplement within it, because by virtue of learning how to do rent to service accommodation, you learn how to source deals in general anyway. So there's no point doing it twice. You can do both at once, basically, just like how I mentioned I do. So hopefully that gives you some insight. Guys, hopefully you found this video very, very useful. This is just to give you an idea, right? Didn't go into these with a lot of depth, but hopefully just give you some insight on some ways that you can get involved in property in 2025 with £25,000. Once again, if you've enjoyed this video, please do like it, please do share, please do subscribe and comment below, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.